SEC recruiting season is really starting to heat up. Florida, A&M, Alabama, all making moves. The Locked On SEC crossover edition starts now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what is up, everybody? Welcome into a crossover edition, Locked On SEC and the Portal. I'm Gordy. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins over at FanDuel.com. We've made this a weekly segment. We love talking all things recruiting with our Locked On recruiting insider. He is Brian Smith, and he joins us now. And Brian, man, let's just dive right into it, because it was a couple weeks ago. You were on this show, and we were going, what is going on with Billy Napier and the Florida Gators? They have got nobody in this class. And I mean, you're dead man walking, man, if you can't get a good recruiting class in Florida. And now here we are just 2 weeks later, and it's running back Carsyn Baker. It's wide receiver Marquez Daniel. They just picked up a defensive back in
CJ Bruno.
CJ Bruno for committed to Florida. So, I mean, this thing has just caught waves like crazy.
Florida is one of those schools that it doesn't take a lot of effort to get guys there. And by all accounts, Billy's a pretty good recruiter. That's why it was so puzzling when they were literally down to one recruit, Chris. One. It's just, I don't know. But I know he's on the hot seat, but it's still Florida. That's, in my opinion, one of the top 5 jobs in college football. I'm steadfast with that, and I think that's why. It's the only SEC school in the state of Florida, and there are more players going to the NFL from that state than any other. It's not that hard, brother. You put that SEC logo on next to that helmet, it's going to get you in some conversations. But they're rolling. They got J. Raylan McCoy. Texas wanted him. They got him away from Texas, a defensive lineman out of Mississippi. They're in on just all kinds of players. Hezzy Kent, a big tight end out of Georgia. They got a great shot at him. Try to get him away from Miami, Florida State, and others. They're going to end up with a top 10 class unless Florida face plants this season, which their schedule can make that possible, because it's an absolute just minefield of tough games. But right now, I mean, they've gone from the outhouse to the penthouse in what, 2.5 weeks, Chris? I mean, it's just unbelievable. It really is.
It's wild. I know McCoy was a guy that, like you said, a lot of schools were after. And then a couple underrated O-linemen, Javari Lucas out of Belgrade, Florida, and then Tyler Chicoyum, however you say his name. Maybe not like huge 5-star offensive linemen, but kind of those guys that you bring in and develop and can be depth on that O-line.
That's exactly what they need, too. They've got 4 linemen committed. They're in on a couple other guys, too, that are really good. They're trying to get Desmond Green. He's out of St. Stephen, South Carolina. He's 350 pounds. He's one of those small guys that the SEC likes up front, Chris. But they're in on just a ton of players all over the South. And they might get some other. Bodney Cleveland, Texas, Florida, probably Texas, the D lineman out of Birmingham, some other guys. Florida's class has trended faster than anybody else's over the last 2 weeks. No doubt about it.
It's a big hat tip to Billy Napier and what they're doing over there in Florida. I've been getting some emails since we've been making this a weekly thing. I've had some listeners reach out. And one guy asked, said, we don't talk enough LSU. Well, Ryan Kelly hadn't been doing a whole lot, but let's touch on, they pick up a 4-star offensive tackle from the state of Mississippi, Emmanuel Tucker, 6'5", 290 pounds. What do you like about him?
The frame, the athleticism. He's one of those, this is pretty obvious. If you turn on film with a kid like this, it doesn't take much to figure it out. Here's the bonus, though. He's like 6'5", 290, 300 pounds. He lives like a half hour from Oxford. I mean, LSU doesn't normally get the North Mississippi kids. They get the kids along the coast, Pascagoula and through that area. To get a kid that lives within a stone's throw of Lane Kiffin's house, that is an interesting recruiting battle. I'm sure that Ole Miss is going to try to continue to recruit him. He was just on Ole Miss's campus prior to committing to LSU. So that is fascinating. But it's LSU, man. Like they've got a lot of recruiting clout in the state of Mississippi, especially the southern part. I'm not shocked. And don't look now, but I'm also hearing some really good things about a 6'5" wide receiver out of Miami Northwestern, trending towards the Bayou Bengals. And if that is Jabari Mack's already committed, he's incredible. Tristan Keys, another Mississippi kid, is already committed. If they get Calvin Russell out of Miami Northwestern, I told you this before the show, your cat could be the quarterback at LSU and it wouldn't make any difference. Like,
well,
I mean, this is not hard, man. If they don't get Bowe Bentley, I'll be surprised now. I was torn on that, but like, it just makes sense.
Ask. Bowe Bentley had a nice visit at Oklahoma. I know they posted a bunch of pictures and said everything went very well there, but this is going to come down to, I mean, it's a 2-horse race between LSU and Oklahoma for Bowe Bentley. And if you're Brian Kelly and company, yeah, I mean, the biggest sell is you had all these elite wide receivers. I mean, you got to have somebody throw them the football.
Well, that too. And they just got Barry in the last class as well, the running back who might have been the best running back in the country. Like, oh, okay, we'll run it this time. He'll go get 7 yards so we can have 2nd and 3 and have carte blanche. Like this, I'm telling you, this is going to be incredibly advantageous for quarterback recruiting this year and next. Like, even by LSU standards, this is pretty impressive.
One more on LSU because I saw this story pop up this week. The number 7 overall recruit, Lamar Brown. He is from Baton Rouge, right there in LSU's backyard. And it sounds like there's been a lot of momentum towards A&M, but there was a report earlier this week that he was not going to take his official visit to LSU, and people kind of looked at him and went, well, he's going to be an Aggie. Well, just a few hours later, the news flips and goes, he will indeed now take his visit. So, LSU's still in this. It's not foregone, but feels like A&M is still very much in the driver's seat.
Yeah, that was weird. When I spoke to Lamar at Under Armour New Orleans, he made it clear that it was pretty open, but A&M, LSU had been after him the hardest, like the longest. So I kind of figured those were just locks to get official visits. And when I saw that post, I'm like, whoa, this is not going to go over well in Baton Rouge. But like you said, a few hours later, I'm scrolling again, and lo and behold, there he is. He's going to visit LSU now. That sounds like a bidding war to me. That's exactly what that sounds like. So I'll be curious if he ends up at one school or the other. Maybe Miami's the other one I think has a shot at him. Probably not, but that's interesting. Like if you're from Baton Rouge, you would think you would take an OB to LSU, but it's a strange world we live in, Chris.
Let's Brian, let's touch on the Aggies because they have they've been making some moves here. Mike Elko and company. I just saw just a couple days ago they picked up a commitment from the Houston area kid. He's an athlete named Caden Johnson, and they think he could play multiple different positions. But just the other day, they pick up one of the top running backs in the country, in KJ Edwards. What is going on with A&M? Because I had somebody ask me, they're like, "I've been to College Station. It's not like the sexiest place you've ever been. So what are they selling in College Station right now? I mean, obviously Mike Elko is a football guy, but they're doing something right there.
They must be a really good group collectively as recruiters because they've recruited more nationally. Now, KJ's an East Texas kid. He's out of Carthage, but they've recruited nationally. California, they've got kids from Georgia. They're dipping in all around the country to get prospects. I don't know. Elko's a good recruiter. I don't know if people know that, but he's been a good recruiter since he was an assistant coach before he became a coordinator at Notre Dame. He had a recruiting rep. So he gets after it too. But I think the fan base is important. And then, of course, their NIL is through the roof because of the oil money. That's probably a factor here as well. But there's playing time too. They're still a step below where they need to be because they're trying to beat Texas. That's arguably the most talented roster in the country. So that's the other part of this. Like they know they got to make a run now. That is part of it that I think is fueling it. They're willing to really get after it because of Texas.
Yeah, when you talk about KJ Edwards, the running back, I mean, he picks A&M over the likes of Texas, LSU, and Alabama, all great schools that produce good running backs. So you can't go wrong with any of them. But I look at what A&M did last year running the football, and they bring back all those guys back again this year. Levy and Moss, who got hurt midseason, Amari Daniels, and then Reuben Owens, the big 5-star kid from outside Houston, who got hurt all last year. So they bring all those guys back. Again, if they all produce like they're supposed to, some of those guys are going to be moving on. So the door opens for KJ Edwards to come in and play very quickly.
Yeah, it's a sneaky running back room, Chris. You're right. If those guys are healthy, they were all elite recruits in their own right. I could see that being one of the best running back rooms in college football. So that's another attractive point. Hey, we're going to run the ball. No doubt that they like that. And I think KJ's kind of the different back. He's really fast. Like, he is super fast. There's some of those, like Moss is a downhill 1985 SEC running back. He's got some speed too, but he's going to truck you. This kid will make you miss in a phone booth. So wouldn't be surprised they split him out a little bit too. He's going to be exciting no matter where they use him.
All right, when we return here, Texas, Georgia, Alabama, we still haven't even touched on those schools. We're going to do that next year on a crossover edition of The Portal and a Locked On SEC, talking all things SEC recruiting. Rolling along here, Locked On SEC. I want to remind you guys about our friends over at FanDuel. If you've been thinking about signing up and you haven't done so yet, now is the perfect time. Obviously, we got the NBA playoffs going on, and every night there's some exciting thing happening in these NBA playoff games that are going to make you want to get in on the action at FanDuel.com. They make it easy for you to stay in the game before tip-off, live in-game with player props, performance trends, same-game parlays. You got more ways than ever to play smart and win big. You can pick, what player you think is going to show up in the biggest moments. You want to take, a team to cover the spread in-game. You can do that right there at FanDuel.com. $200 in bonus bets has been the deal they've had going on. It is a great deal to take advantage of. If you're new to FanDuel, if you've never played them before, perfect time to sign up. Go to FanDuel.com right now. You get signed up. You place your first $5 bet, and if it wins, you get $200 back in bonus bets. It's the greatest deal in town. Perfect time, too, right before college football season is going to start up. They got all these week one lines already up there of the majority of the big SEC teams at FanDuel, over under win totals, Heisman odds. It's all up there for you at FanDuel. You can make every moment more with FanDuel. They are the official sports betting partner of the NBA. As we dive back into it, talking all things recruiting with our Locked On College insider, Brian Smith. And Brian, let's talk a little bit on Alabama. I know they flipped a quarterback from Iowa State just a couple of days ago, but seems like Kalen DeBoer, I know you got the invite list there handy. They got some big visitors coming here the next couple of days. So expect Alabama to be moving up those recruiting rankings.
Yeah, they've had some kids over the last couple of weeks that they're trending for that are 4 or 5 star recruits, depending on which network you want to go with. Running back is Xavier Crowell. He's a kid that reclassed. Everybody wants him. Georgia, Auburn, everybody. Probably going to Bama. Xavier Griffin, arguably the top linebacker in the country, probably going to Alabama. Defensive end Anthony Tate Jones out of Mobile, probably going to Alabama, another 5-star kid. Wide receiver Cedarian Morgan, 5-star receiver from in-state, probably going to Bama. They might even get Jet Washington out of Las Vegas, one of the top safeties, 6'4", 6'5". They are on fire. It's just a matter of when they actually announce. But right now, like the next 3 weeks, it may be spread out. But at the end of the next 3 weeks, if Alabama is in the top 3 in the recruiting rankings, don't be surprised.
Do you know anything about that kid? I think the quarterback from Omaha, he was committed to Iowa State, Jet Tamala.
Yeah, I watched his film. He went from his sophomore to junior year and went up 10% in completion percentage, went down like 6 in interceptions. His passing yardage went up like 1,000. He's got a natural throwing motion. He's a kid that'll fit into DeBoer's offense well. He's a pretty good runner, but he's not a guy that's like super dynamic. He's going to extend plays, but he's very accurate, 6'3", 200 pounds. He fits DeBoer's offense, and he'll be able to hang out behind Keelan Russell for a few years before he turns pro. Then they'll have a guy waiting in the wings that fits the offense great. So good pickup by Alabama.
Yeah, it's a wild time. We're talking about a quarterback that was once committed to SMU, flips to Alabama, and a quarterback that was once committed to Iowa State, flips to Alabama. It's, hey, there's talent out there. You got to go find it. So
that's right.
We'll see what happens there. All right, let's touch on the Georgia Bulldogs. I saw they just got a 4-star offensive tackle in Kene Aboko, and then on top of it, I know they just flipped the 4-star corner Caden Harris away from Vanderbilt a few days ago. So Kirby Smart doing Kirby Smart things.
Yeah, it was a matter of time before they got going. They're still in it deep for 5-star running back Derek Cooper. That's probably the one I'm watching the closest. That's gone back and forth between them and Miami for a long time for the South Florida native. And there are a handful of in-state kids that still haven't decided that they're going to get. Like it's kind of inevitable. Bama and Georgia, barring them just hiring the wrong people, it's a top 10 class every year for those schools. It's just not that hard. So, and they've got the right people in place right now in terms of wanting to get after it on the trail. So over the next week or so, I don't know if it'll quite be as much as Bama, but they're probably going to have 5 or 6 really big commitments. And Georgia, again, kind of like Bama, top 5 class.
Yeah, it's just what they do. They're always there. I saw they got one of the top ranked kickers too for 2026. A kid out of
that. So.
We don't talk much kicking recruiting here, but look, you need a good one. You might as well get one of the top ones out there. What about Texas? I know they've got some big time visits happening. I know they got D lineman JJ Johnson, linebacker Tyler Atkinson, and then I saw the 4-star edge Dre Quinn is down to Clemson and Texas as his final 2. So some big names out there for Texas.
They also have got Trenton Henderson, another 5-star defensive end out of Florida, that's going to be visiting. Like, they're going all in on out-of-state D-line recruiting this year. I guess it's not a great year in-state, but they're just trying to load up on defensive linemen, just like they did in the portal. They're trying to do that, be big, be physical, be athletic up front. That's probably a great recipe because that's exactly what Nick Saban did. So I think Sark has learned from the right person, and they're doing better in-state than I even thought they would. They're in on everybody. Caden Finley, the wide receiver, is going to pick either his dad's alma mater, Texas or Notre Dame. That's a really interesting battle. And they're in on a few other kids in state too. So are they going to be the number 1 class again like they were last year? I don't know if it'd be number 1, but they're in contention. And if they can get James Johnson or Kendall Gravel, one of the D tackles out of Florida, that would help them get there. But again, they're in on so many guys out of state now. It's hard to keep up with Texas. They've got a really wide-ranging recruitment.
I meant to ask you about that. I'll throw you under the bus here. You put out your top recruiters in the recruiting coaches in the country a couple weeks ago, and I think Steve Sarkisian didn't make the cut there. So is that one of those things you just think, look, Texas should be recruiting at a high level?
Well, that's part of it. When he was at Washington and SC, he recruited well, but he wasn't like elite. I think being under Saban has taught him like the organizational part of it and how it works. He's improved immensely. If they end up in the top 5 again next year, he'll be on my list. It's just like he's looked at it different. Like he's just approached it totally different since he's got to Texas. We all knew he could coach, but Texas is probably, in my opinion, the easiest job in college football too. So that does not hurt for sure.
Yeah, and there's some coaches out there too that they're going to be good recruiters wherever they go. Ed Ogeron was one of those. I mean, he lived in living rooms. Like, he was great at doing that. Mario Cristobal, I know, fits that category. So there's just some guys, they just live for recruiting, whereas some other guys are good recruiters, but I wouldn't classify them as they live for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and if you don't in today's age, think about the top 10 to 15 programs. You know who they are off the top of your head. How many of them have a coach you're like, this guy's a mediocre recruiter? Really not any of them. So if you can't recruit at a high clip, in addition to being at Texas, Georgia, Miami, whatever, you're not going to go anywhere. The recruiting chops have to be there. So it helps to be at schools like Florida, Bama, whatever, but you got to want to go after it. I think Kalen DeBoer has even upped his game. They've completely ramped up their style, especially down south for linemen and stuff. They've really focused more this year. He's changed. It's a different dynamic in the SEC. You've got to go after the elite kids, and the head coach has got to be directly involved.
There was one I meant to ask you about when we were talking about LSU. It's their 5-star commit, Tristan Keys, and I know he's coming off some official visits. He went to A&M. He was hanging out with Faison Brandon, the top quarterback, on his Tennessee visit. And then I saw a report he's no longer expected to visit Alabama this week, but will return to Baton Rouge. So maybe that bodes well for LSU. You never get a read on this, Brian, because sometimes these kids, they know where they want to go, but you're a 17-year-old kid getting wine and dine. Go take your visits, right?
That's pretty much what it is. He's as good a wide receiver as there is in the country. Plays at Hattiesburg High School in Mississippi, and Tristan's a very competitive player. He's not afraid of anything, so he'll listen. He's a nice kid. Tennessee thinks they've got a good chance to flip him. Maybe they do. Having Faison Brandon certainly helps, but he's grown up fairly close to Ole Miss and LSU. At the end of the day, I would imagine it's going to be one of those two. Tennessee, I would say, is the other. Miami had him on campus three times too, though. Like it's so random. That may not be over until signing day.
One more kid I meant to ask you about, a 4-star edge, Kamari Brooks. I know he's announcing his recruitment in a couple days, reportedly down to Alabama and Georgia. He's from Bogart, Georgia, 6'4", 235 pounds. I mean, pick your poison, Alabama or Georgia. He's a Georgia kid. It'd be a huge get for Kalen DeBoer and company.
Yeah, he lives, I believe, like right outside of Athens. I know which school I'm picking on this one. Yeah, it's
yeah, probably a safe bet. All right, when we return here on our edition, a crossover edition of Locked On SEC and the Portal, we'll talk a little bit more recruiting with Brian Smith here on our crossover edition. All right, continue on here with Brian Smith, our Locked On insider when it comes to recruiting. And Brian, as we look at a couple of other schools that are picking up guys, I saw Oklahoma really starting to add some pieces under Brent Venables. They got their 4th commitment of the month just a couple days ago, 4-star running back out of Missouri, Dezevin Walker.
Yeah.
Seems like a pretty good running back. And man, Oklahoma, that's where they kind of been lacking in the last couple of years. I mean, you think of the days of Adrian Peterson and all these great running backs that they have. Feels like Oklahoma's kind of lost their identity there. They need to get back to that ground and pound.
Well, they're getting consistent with it, and more importantly, they're getting big guys up front too. They're dipping into Texas. They just got a couple of really good offensive tackles that everybody wanted. I'm sure that probably helped Walker decide on the Sooners too. I'd want to be behind guys that weigh 310 and are really athletic. So Oklahoma needs a really good class in addition to having a better season than last year to keep Venables around. And their staff's done a good job. They're recruiting in Florida. They're recruiting Georgia, all over the place. Oklahoma's got a good class. Now can they hold on to it and win some games like that Michigan game early in the season, Chris? I'm sure they'll have a bunch of kids on campus for that one. You need to win those games and keep building momentum.
I saw Mississippi State. They picked up a 2026 commitment from an offensive tackle named Charles Humphrey out of Knoxville, Tennessee. And this just got my gears working, Brian. When I see that happen, I go,
what?
Clearly that kid didn't sneak under the radar of Tennessee. So I've seen this happen before. Sometimes there's a kid in a school's own backyard that they just don't prioritize, right? Or they go, we already got 3 offensive tackles we think are better than him. So, we're fine with him slipping out the back door. We see that sometimes in recruiting where it's like you see a kid from Baton Rouge, but he goes to, Alabama. It's like, okay, how did they miss on that guy? And sometimes the schools they're not in on him or they don't like him.
Yeah, it can be random. Everybody assumes just because a young man is from a town that he's going to go there. Sometimes they're too close too. I mean, there's been a few kids I remember from the Baton Rouge area that have gone to Alabama. LSU fans get all up in arms over it, but again, it's Alabama too. Sometimes the kid just wants to get away. On the other side of that, you got to give credit to the school that did the recruiting. It doesn't take a lot to figure out it's going to be hard. Sometimes schools will be lazy, like, I ain't going to mess with that kid. So give them credit for going in there, and give credit to Mississippi State in this case. They didn't care. They went after him and recruited him from Knoxville. That's hilarious. I think it's great too.
Yeah, I think the one I always somebody brought up to me, I think Dak Prescott was from Shreveport.
He's Louisiana kid, goes to Mississippi State. That hurts.
And goes on to be a stud quarterback in the NFL too, by the way. That doesn't hurt. Help me out here. What are some other storylines here when it comes to recruiting? I've seen, just big picture. I've seen Florida State's had a nice haul lately. Notre Dame's been making moves. Marcus Freeman, really riding a hot wave of making a national championship appearance. But what are some of the big storylines nationally that's been happening in the last week or so?
Right now, Notre Dame's about to beat Penn State for like 4 recruits in just over a day. That's wild. That's so random. Miami, Florida State are all battling for a handful of kids. Brody Jennings is a kid from Jacksonville that Kirby really wants bad too. At Georgia, it's a corner. All the in-state schools plus Georgia. He's going to be at FSU this next weekend. I don't know where that kid's going, but he can pick his school. Really, really good player. I would say that Texas is the one in particular that I'm interested in, like we talked about earlier. James Johnson, the D-tackle on Miami Northwestern, Trenton Henderson, all these guys from like Florida and Georgia, like the linebacker Tyler Atkinson from Grayson High School just outside Atlanta, all visiting Texas. It's weird. But the Horns have went national, kind of like Saban did. He has literally adapted that model. And I think that Texas has got a chance to use it. If I was Texas, I would probably recruit a little more in-state. It just seems so easy to me because that's a top 3 state nationally on any given year for talent. But we'll see how that goes. Notre Dame's probably having their best recruiting year since the early 90s, that 90 class that was so famous with Bryant Young and Jerome Bettis and some of them. And then Southern Cal right now still has the number one class in the country. They got 27, 28 commits or something like that. And they're going to take up to, Chris, listen to this, 35 players. That's what I've been told by multiple people. 35. Like they're going to try to flip the roster. They made some mistakes. Let's just leave it at that, especially in the trenches. They're trying to correct that. They've got like 6 or 7 D linemen already. I mean, they got Pape, the offensive tackle out of IMG that Miami and everybody in the world tried to recruit. And they're trying to add more. So it's been a wild year already, and we're not even in July. So I don't know if there's been a surprise per se, but it's just been fun. I mean, even Illinois is in the top 10 right now, by the way, on one of the services. Illinois.
I should say too, Vanderbilt's had a nice showing here. They've picked up a handful of kids this month, and as of this recording, as we're looking at Vanderbilt's recruiting class on the composite is ahead of Oklahoma, Ole Miss, South Carolina, Alabama. So Clark Lee kind of riding his success from last year.
Give Clark Lee some credit. Can you imagine how hard it is to recruit against Alabama, Tennessee, Ole Miss, the schools right around you? Are you kidding me? Those kids, a lot of kids, I'll just be blunt, they don't want the academic rigors that Vanderbilt's going to put you through like freshman class. They don't want it. So get a top 15, 20 class. That's probably asking too much. But being in the top 35, I think the way they're recruiting is possible. Maybe top 25 on the right year. And they beat Bama last year. I'm sure that video, when any recruit comes on campus at Vanderbilt, they're going to see some of that video. They're going to see a lot. I would if I was probably. I'd make every kid see that. So good for them. I think it's kind of cool.
He is Brian Smith. You can follow him at FB Scout_Florida. And of course, crossover edition of Locked On SEC in the Portal. Thank you guys for making us your first listen every day. We'll talk to you guys next week with more recruiting talk with our buddy Brian Smith.